Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this candidate forum for the upcoming at-large councilperson election on Tuesday, February 10th. My name is Colby Bryant, and with the help of the Hugo Middle School media team, we're glad to give voters a chance to hear directly from the candidates seeking to serve our community. With early voting starting tomorrow morning and Election Day next week, it's important to slow down for a moment and actually listen to the people asking for your vote. Local elections don't always get the attention they should, even though the decisions made at this level affect our everyday lives more than almost anything else. Over the past several years, I've spent a lot of time attending public meetings where very few citizens were in the room, and honestly, that's been discouraging. This forum exists because I believe that our community is at its best when people are informed, involved, and willing to care about what's happening right here at home. The ways in which people connect have changed over time, and this video is meant to give candidates a practical way to reach voters all at once, whether you're watching live or later on. Some of you may already know who you're voting for, and some of you may still be deciding. But either way, I encourage you to listen, think it over, and most importantly, show up and vote. This forum is not meant as an endorsement of any one particular candidate. It's simply an opportunity to hear ideas, learn priorities, and get to know the people who want to represent you. Each candidate will have offer their speeches to you all, and as we are recording in the school studio space, there will be no live audience questions. We ask that everyone please keep remarks respectful and focused, especially since this forum is hosted on an educational platform. And with that, let's get started. Our candidates who will be speaking tonight are in the following order: Chris Cannon, Tim Lemons, Leah Guess-Thomas, and John Wyrick.
Good evening, and thank you to everyone who took the time to watch tonight. My name is Chris Cannon, and I'm running for City Council because I believe our city works best when we put the community first, not personal interests or politics. I've lived in Hugo for 18 years. This is where I work, where I've built lasting relationships, and where I've invested my time and energy because I care deeply about our future. For the last 10 years, I've served as chair of the Hugo Housing Authority Board. During that time, I've had to make hard decisions to ensure our residents and families have safe and affordable housing. I served on the Chamber of Commerce Board and currently serve on the Hugo Industrial Authority, focused on attracting jobs and returning business to our downtown area. Our city faces real challenges and real opportunities. Progress only happens when decisions are made with objectivity, with the best interest of the entire community in mind. Personal allegiances and disagreements can't be allowed to distract from the work we're here and elected to do. We grow together or we don't grow at all. Our budget is limited, which means every dollar matters. The council must scrutinize spending, evaluate priorities, and explore ways to generate revenue without increasing the tax burden on the residents. Infrastructure must remain a top priority. Clean water, safe roads, reliable sewers, and police and fire services are basic needs, not optional expenses. The city's made progress, but there's still work to do, and that's going to require persistence and transparency. I'm not running on slogans or promises I can't keep. I'm running to work, and I'm running to bring practical experience and leadership to the table. Government works best when it's cooperative and focused on the people. If elected, I will work every day to put community first. I would appreciate your support and your vote. God bless Hugo, and go Buffs. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you to everyone watching tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak directly to you about the future of our community because local elections matter. The decisions made at City Hall affect our neighborhoods, our streets, our utilities, our businesses, and ultimately whether the community moves forward or falls behind. I want to start by being very clear about something. I didn't wake up one morning and suddenly decide to run for City Council. This has been building for years. Like many of you, I've watched our neighborhoods decline. I've watched streets deteriorate faster than we fix them. I've watched buildings sit vacant while other towns move forward. And I've watched problems get talked about, studied, and deferred year after year until they became emergencies. At the same time, I've also seen what happens when leadership changes direction, when city employees are empowered instead of handcuffed, when expectations are raised, when someone finally has the courage to say good enough isn't good enough anymore. That word expectations is at the core of why I'm running. I believe one of the biggest problems Hugo faces today is not lack of resources and not a lack of people who care. It's a lack of expectations. Expectations for how our neighborhoods should look, expectations for how our streets should be maintained, expectations for how ordinances should be enforced, expectations for how city government should operate, and expectations for what citizens should receive in return for their tax dollars. For too long, we've accepted decline as normal. We've lowered the bar instead of raising it, and we've explained away problems instead of solving them. I don't believe that is who we are as a community. I'm dedicated to real problem solving. To me, problem solving means recognizing a problem, understanding why it exists, gathering information, and then implementing a solution. Not just talking about it, not just passing it on to the next council or generation, not just hoping it fixes itself. Take our neighborhoods. Over the last several decades, as people moved outside city limits, older homes were turned into rentals, maintenance declined, and some properties were eventually abandoned or lost to fire. Soft ordinances and inconsistent enforcement allowed conditions to worsen. New single-family home construction slowed to a crawl. Recognizing the problem was the easy part. Understanding the reason wasn't hard either. The hard part, the part we've avoided, is doing something about it. That means strengthening ordinances when necessary, actually enforcing the ordinances we already have, empowering code enforcement and city staff to do their jobs, maintaining alleys, drainage, and right-of-ways so they don't become dumping grounds, and incentivizing new home construction so families want to live here again. The worst thing a city can do is nothing. The same applies to our streets. Everyone knows streets are expensive. Everyone knows materials and labor costs are rising. And everyone knows we can't fix everything at once. But what we can do is stop pretending this will somehow solve itself. We need a serious, disciplined plan, one that looks at dedicated funding, prioritization, and doing more work in-house when it makes sense, instead of constantly paying contractor premiums for small jobs. That requires planning, it requires restraint, and it requires leadership willing to say no to some things so we can say yes to the right ones. Which brings me to city finances, because expectations mean nothing if we aren't honest about money. On paper, Hugo's budget can look healthy, but the reality is a large portion of that money is already committed before a single road is repaired or a pipe is replaced. Roughly 40% of the budget goes to payroll benefits and employment costs. Water and sewer revenues are largely committed to long-term debt. Portions of sales tax are pledged and unavailable for other needs. This doesn't mean the city is mismanaged, but it does mean flexibility is limited. And when flexibility is limited, borrowing becomes the default solution. That cycle, borrow, commit future revenue, borrow again, is not sustainable long term. Transparency matters here. Citizens deserve to understand not just the annual budget, but the long-term obligations behind it. They deserve clear explanations, plain language, and openness before decisions are made, not after. Raising expectations means respecting taxpayers enough to tell them the truth. I also believe expectations apply to how City Hall operates. The City Council and the City Manager have different roles for a reason. The Council sets policy, approves budgets, passes ordinances, and represents the people publicly. The City Manager runs day-to-day operations and manages staff professionally. When those roles are respected, government works better. Over the past several months, I believe we've seen a positive change in direction from city management. We've seen more right-of-ways cleared, more basic maintenance addressed, and more visible effort than in years past. If elected, I want to build on that, not disrupt it. City employees want to do good work. They take pride in this community. They just need clear direction, proper tools, and support from leadership. Raising expectations doesn't mean blaming employees. It means empowering them. Now let's talk about the future, because expectations without vision only get you so far. Economic development does not happen by accident. Other towns across southeast Oklahoma are competing every day for industry, for jobs, for families, and for investment. They market themselves, they plan, they communicate a vision. We haven't done that consistently, and it shows. Hugo has assets. We have water, we have a location, we have people who care deeply about this place. But we can't sit back and wait for someone else to create our future. We must actively promote opportunity. We must steward our water responsibly. We must support local businesses that generate sales tax, the lifeblood of city government. And we must create a city that our kids will want to stay here or come back to when they're done with school. I think about that often. I think about our young people, their talent, their education, and their potential. And I ask myself, what are we offering them here? Raising expectations means believing Hugo is worth investing in and acting like it. Over the past 2 months, I've spent a lot of time discussing these issues and sharing specific examples of how I would govern. There are far too many to cover in a 10-minute forum like this. If you're undecided and want to hear more detail about how I think about decisions, priorities, and accountability, I encourage you to visit my Facebook page, Elect Tim Lemons for Hugo City Council at Large. Everything I've talked about tonight is expanded on there in plain language for anyone who wants to dig deeper. I want to be very clear about the kind of council member I would be. I won't shy away from tough issues. I won't tell you one thing and do another. I won't go along just to keep the peace. But I will listen. I will answer questions directly. I will work with others in good faith, and I will put the long-term health of Hugo ahead of politics, personalities, or pressure. I'm not running to make promises I can't keep. I'm running to bring discipline, transparency, accountability, and higher expectations for what our city can be. And I'll end with this. If at the end of this term I can't point to real, measurable progress, if expectations aren't higher, if direction hasn't changed, you won't see my name on the ballot again. Hugo has a future, but that future depends on leadership willing to expect more and act on it. Thank you.
Thank you for having us here. I want to tell you just a little bit about me. I'm married to Richard Thomas. Richard is a cloud solution architect with Microsoft, where he has been employed for over 20 years. We have a blended family of 6 children, Richard Jr., Kyle, and Brittany, and my biological children. My oldest daughter, Olivia, is an LPN, and my youngest daughter, Amaya, is a student at OSUIT studying to become an RN. And many of you may remember my son, Christian, who died in 2020 at Trinity Rail Car trying to save another coworker. Why I'm running. I received a call. I received a call from citizens who I had no thought of running, but the citizens called me and asked me if I would run. I told them to give me just a little bit of time, and I wanted to think about it. I took about a week, and I prayed about it. Then I received a call. I received a call from the master, who told me, he reminded me that I am a servant, and that he had allowed me to gain knowledge of municipalities. If I am seated as a city council person, I will put that gleaned knowledge to use, to be a voice for those unheard. I'm capable. Contrary to the untruths being spread, here are the facts. With 18 years of city experience, I learned a lot about municipal government. During my tenure and with limited funds, I was able to oversee economic growth, realizing new retail such as Pruitt's Grocery, Scooters, and Ollie's. Successfully implemented grant seeking that led to receiving well over $2 million in grants. Oversight in implementing a $16 million water treatment plant renovation that should be complete right now. Oversaw the demolition of over 150 dilapidated structures in residential areas. Initiated a City Hall summer youth work program. Implemented construction of a new animal facility. I began the first stages of Hugo's streetscaping project by implementing the first street arch with a 50% donation from Choctaw Nation. I negotiated successful union contracts yearly. Also, with limited funds, I established pickleball and renovated the old tennis courts at Ansley Park, added a concession building and new restrooms at Coral Lee Park, and began renovations starting with the restrooms at the rodeo arena. Also, I received the 2021 Oklahoma Municipal League Woman of the Year Award for small cities, and the 2020 Hugo Chamber of Commerce Award for Citizen of the Year. These are a few of my many accomplishments, all while maintaining a healthy budget. I'm a woman of upstanding morals and ethics. One example of this is when I had been city manager for about a year. I was threatened with termination in an offhanded way on separate occasions if I didn't fire the fire chief and the police chief. I held my ground and told them no. I told them that they could fire me and hire someone else who would be their puppet. God blessed me to stay there another 5 years. My morals are more important to me than any job. I don't have any cliques. It won't be any of this. You vote my way today, and I'll vote yours the next time. It won't be any of those games. I've pressed forward and stayed positive, even while being stepped on to elevate one's own self. Some receipts of this were on Facebook. While I was city manager, a group started a campaign on social media of pure negativity, driving around town making videos to show the bad of Hugo, spreading misinformation to rile up the citizens, like the green leak detector spill. There's a bucket of green chemical that's used to detect leaks. That bucket had leaked, and it had rained, and water was flowing, and it caused the water to turn green. Citizens called, and we told them what that was. But instead of relaying that information, they filmed it, put it on Facebook, and continued to spread misinformation. The intent was to make me look bad, but what it was doing was making Hugo look bad. Currently, that same group is now praising the city for random day-to-day operations. And when a citizen now makes a comment that appears negative, it immediately is hit with, "Don't be so negative." While I may not agree with all complaints, I do believe citizens should be able to express their concerns and their voices not be suppressed. My concern is, if this group that was posting all the negative, if their person is not elected, do they go back to making Hugo look bad? And why wouldn't they? The celebrated Maya Angelou once said, "When people show you who they are, believe them." I've been specifically pointed out by candidates. On January 14th, a candidate took to social media to call me out, saying that voters should consider how my current professional responsibilities may intersect with the duties of the elected official, stating that while these situations may be legal, my role as economic development officer causes conflict involving projects and agreements. A citizen replied to that post, stating that owning a private business, which the candidate states he does, while serving on the city council, creates ongoing, unavoidable conflicts of interest because the city council regularly makes decisions that directly affect local businesses, such as zoning changes, business permits and licenses, fees, tax incentives, infrastructure improvements, and enforcement priorities. Saying when a council member owns a business in the community, those decisions can directly or indirectly impact their own financial interest. A business owner benefits from increased property values. When the same person voting on those matters stands to gain financially, it raises legitimate concerns about whether decisions are being made for the public good or private benefit. When a business owner sits on city council, voters may question whether the councilman's influence is being used to advantage their own business. The citizen stated that the goal is not to exclude business people from public service, but to ensure decisions are made without personal financial stake, protecting transparency, accountability, and trust. Be careful of the ditch you're digging for others, sir. Now, I 100% understand, especially in a small town, you're going to have business owners and people like myself that work other entities who serve on the city council. That's when your morals and your ethics come into play, by following the law to abstain from any conflicts. Regardless of misinformation, I have proven to be a woman of uncompromised integrity. I have first-hand experience, knowledge of local government, and I will ensure that your voices and concerns throughout the city are not muted. Also know this, if I don't win this election, you won't find me bashing the city of Hugo or any person on social media. It's not my character. What you will find me doing is continuing to work to make my city, my county, and my state a better place, because it's been proven that that's who I am. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
With the amount of damage incurred following last week's winter weather, John Wyrick will unfortunately be unable to attend tonight, as he has been working overtime to repair pipe damage at various locales in our town. He wanted to share that, as he shared in our previous candidate forum, he believes that he comes at this position with a unique skill set in comparison to his opponents, and he would love to have the opportunity to further serve the community of Hugo. And with that, we have heard from our candidates, each asking for your vote for at-large councilperson. Polls open tomorrow morning for early voting from 8 a.m. through 6 o'clock p.m. at the Choctaw County Courthouse. On Friday, early voting will continue at the same times of 8 a.m. through 6 o'clock p.m. also at the courthouse. There will be no early voting over the weekend or on Monday. However, voting will resume on Election Day on Tuesday, February 10th from 7 a.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. at your appropriate precinct. But be aware that the polling place for Precinct 316 will no longer be at the Hugo High School. It will now be at the Choctaw County Library in the large meeting room. I repeat, if you have voted at Hugo High School in the past few years, you will now vote at the Choctaw County Library on Election Day. Please share the video with those that you know, and please encourage other Hugo voters to get out and vote. Thank you for watching.